Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. This episode is part of our Bookseller Lightning Talk series, in which booksellers present short talks on tech tools, organizational strategies, communication methods, or innovations they've made in their stores.
My name's Lyn Ciurro, use they, them pronouns with Bound to Happen Books. We're in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. And yeah, I'm giving a brief talk on being a blue dot in a red state, or my silly joke is that it's a red dot and a blue dot in a red state because I'm a socialist. Yeah, so that's us right there in the middle in this really blurry image of the 2020 election results. So you can see, oh geez, my phone's about to go off, of course. The joys of working in the store. I think we should be good. Yeah, so we are smack dab in the middle of Wisconsin, and in fact, we're known as the gateway to the pineries, which means that once you get north of us, you start to get into the like Northwoods area of the state. Very rural until you get really up north near the Minnesota border. We are the county seat. Stevens Point's about 25,000 people, fairly young, kind of gearing or like inching ever younger, 53,000 medium income. And I think one of the big reasons why we are such a blue county within the state is also because we're one of the large-ish University of Wisconsin schools, at least for this section of the state. And I say all that just to see, if you're listening to this and if you are in a similar situation, that you can see that maybe there are some similarities that you can draw out. But I feel like even for people who are in larger cities or even in smaller villages and, who maybe aren't even in one of those blue dots, maybe they're kind of drowning in the red dots that it can exist in a lot of states. There's some lessons to kind of grab from this. And what I really want to focus on is how we kind of take our values, take our mission, and we make that kind of front and center for who we are and the work that we're doing. And how in a lot of ways, and honestly, like in the majority of the time, we actually get a great response from it. There are times where we don't, and we have to manage that. But sometimes even in those situations, we can turn it on its head and use it as a moment to build even more community support for what we're up to. We have very clearly stated values that we put front and center. We're emphasizing stories, authors, and experiences that aren't typically represented in mainstream literature or in like the mainstream of our community. And so for us in central Wisconsin, we actually have a really large Hmong and Southeast Asian community. And so we try to work with different community organizations and community authors to bring in books where people can see themselves actually represented on the shelves and in the pages. We also recognize the power that is inherent in storytelling and the barriers between who can or cannot share their stories. Again, same, very similar to the first value. And yeah, we don't hide who we are as individuals, as I guess I should say, yeah, I'm one of the owners of the store as well as the store manager. But even with a couple of the employees we have, we don't try to hide who we are. We're very upfront about our political beliefs and what it is that we stand for and what we won't stand for in our store. So what we try to consciously do is treat the bookstore as like a civic center for our community. I think most bookstores kind of have that potential baked into them, just because we're a place where people are going to come to try to connect with some of these stories that we carry on our shelves, whether they're fiction or nonfiction. They're also trying to connect with other people, whether it's through book clubs or it's through just talking to folks amongst the shelves. We've had many times where we haven't even had to hand sell a book because we have a regular who will, I don't know, see somebody else looking in their favorite section and will be like, oh my gosh, you need to read this book about this thing because it's so great. And they have that conversation. We kind of don't even need to step into it. But I think what that can require is, yeah, a real conscious effort to make your space known for that. And so I try to order this as like the way that I kind of think about how we can make this known and like really put our values forward from like the top, the thing that we most think about, down to like things that are important, things that matter, but maybe they aren't like where we start with things. So, we start with our book curation. We do carry, front list, we do front list ordering. But even with that, we try to be really specific that we're carrying things that align with our values, our political beliefs, and that we know that our community will either enjoy, will kind of want to read, or sometimes that might push the envelope a little bit more and spark conversations that we think are necessary. We don't yet have a metric of sort of like tracking how much of our store is either like front list that we order in because we know people are going to just want to come in and order it, or they'll look on our website to try to get it, just like general interest, versus what we carry based in our values most specifically. But it's again something that we take up in a conscious way. I already spoke about conversations and how those come up between customers, but also come up between like booksellers and customers, and between booksellers, to just not shying away from having a discussion if it is a political book, fiction or nonfiction, talking about why that matters and why we need to be talking about that. With events, we specifically around not author events as much, but just events that we put on because we have an interest in it ourselves. Focusing again on books and stories, and especially like working with book clubs to help them pick out books that are maybe fit their general interest, whether it's our queer romance book club, or we have a horror book club, and then a radical book club. But also suggesting books that are maybe from authors with identities that they haven't read before. With a queer romance book club, it's kind of easy, but trying to bring forward queer authors in the horror and the radical book club section as well, authors of color, etc. Community partnerships, I think, is also a huge thing. We're a queer-owned bookstore, so it's important, like, to make sure that we are partnering with those queer organizations, and so we do. Whether it's through financial supports as we can, or providing books for drag story time at the Pride event. But that's an easy thing. We do it because we need to, and we care to, but it's an easier thing for us to do. So, we're not, none of the owners are Hmong, so we need to make sure that we're making a conscious effort to connect with those Hmong organizations in the community. And then finally, kind of one of the ones that I think can be kind of tough, and I think is a huge conversation to have during this time, election year. But yeah, like actual political endorsements, whether they're official or if they're maybe more implicit. It could be for a specific politician. We honestly kind of shy away from that a little bit. We focus on issues. And so if there's a push, like recently from our county board, to have an appointment to the library board who is very clearly like a Moms for Liberty type of person. Like, we're going to spread the word about it, and we're going to tell people that they should go to that meeting and voice their concerns for keeping literacy like available for everybody. With some of those things, like I said, a lot of it is really good. People find us from all across the county, all across central Wisconsin, because we're really forward about our politics, and we can be an oasis of sorts for some of these political conversations or political actions. Sometimes it's not as nice. Like we had a drag storytime event that was protested, that was honestly like really kind of nerve-wracking a little bit. Kind of got a little bit of like QAnon type people posting online about us, gays against groomers, those folks. And so it's like, it's not a, I don't want to say that this is a good thing, because it was really stressful. But we posted about that we were being targeted, that there were people coming in and putting those dumb little note cards into books, and like picketing outside of our storefronts. And there were people who were just downtown. This was like December 23rd, who either had never heard of us before, but they saw that there were people with these dumb protest signs, and they were like, I don't know what this is, but I know I need to be here to support what's going on inside. Or we had people who just saw us posting online and were like, I didn't plan to come today, but now I'm here and I'm going to stand outside your store and like provide like a wall of people to like block things off. And so, yeah, I think like, there's, I won't pretend like it's like all good to kind of put yourself out there. But I think if one of the big focuses for you, which, is the big focus for us, is to build community. I think putting your beliefs out there through book curations, through displays, through events, through book clubs, if you wanted to dive a little more into political, actions within your community, what I have found is that usually, more often than not, there are more people who are going to appreciate that and who are looking for it, than there are people who are going to be buttheads about it. Love to answer any questions, and if anybody wanted to like reach out and have more conversations on any of that stuff too, I'd be more than happy to talk more later. Thanks.
Thanks, Lynn. So we do have a couple questions in the chat. The first one that is really important is, how do you balance responsibility to community versus responsibility to ensure staff safety?
Yeah, that's a big one. Especially, it was something that we hadn't really had to worry about until the drag storytime event last December. But yeah, we did like have to make sure that we were trying our best to have more than one person in the store at all times, to make sure that like the police were kind of aware of what was going on, especially with the online posting about there being like tunnels under our store. Like we didn't want people to kind of go off on that. And it's kind of a conversation too with each staff member. Like, what are you comfortable with? What aren't you comfortable with? What could help you feel more comfortable in this situation as well? No one size fits all answer for that, unfortunately, but we do try to make sure that everybody feels safe and comfortable.
Somewhat related, do you have sort of canned talking points when staff or you engage with customers that are either not aligned with your values, or wander into your store and they're like, oh, what is this? And not in a less inclusive way than you would hope. Are there things that you have on hand that can immediately support a staff member in diffusing the situation, or inviting that new person into the conversation rather than calling them out or shutting them out in a way?
Yeah, we do. The kind of funny-ish thing is that people are usually have too much Midwestern kindness or whatever to really say anything. Maybe they'll turn some books around and we'll find that or whatever, or they'll say something snide as they walk out. But we try not to escalate, of course. Like, we don't want to blow a situation up or put anybody into a position where they are feeling unsafe. But I think this comes up most often when people will come in and want to order a book that doesn't align with who we are. Hillbilly Elegy being kind of one of the bigger ones recently. It's just a book that I'm not going to carry. And honestly, for the most part, again, we don't engage, we don't escalate. If somebody asks if we have it or can order it, we can just say, no, we don't. We don't even have to go into that conversation, which is what I usually encourage staff to do, like to not get into that conversation. I'm a little, I don't know, feistier. And so I'll sometimes kind of give like a very nicely antagonistic explanation of like, well, actually, like, here's what that book is saying right now, and we don't actually think that's helpful to the broader narrative. And so that's just a book that we don't want to carry. But if you're interested in more about Appalachia, here's a display with a lot of other books that I think you would really enjoy, and let's have a conversation about it. Same with like a lot of books or displays that we had on Palestine with the war in Gaza. Trying to make it a moment where we can educate and share and talk, rather than, like you said, call somebody out. Like that's not what we're here for. That's not what we want to do with our political values. We want to like help spread them. And sometimes people do ask in good faith. And that's like something that I never want to take for granted.
Thank you for listening to the Bookstore Education Podcast, brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA website at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!